starting now in our portion of the meeting where the public is allowed to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any subject that is within the jurisdiction of the Measure P and Measure IS Oversight Committee, but which is not on the agenda. Do we have any public wishing to speak? Or you want to wait a minute?
I do have one short announcement to make before we take public comment.
Okay.
Let's see, we encourage members of the public to watch this broadcast on YouTube Live, which has a short delay of approximately 10 seconds. You can watch it youtube.com/City of Monterey or on the YouTube app on Google Play or at the Apple App Store. To make a public comment when viewers watching live on YouTube or Channel 25, see the announcement on the Chiron or the lower third caption on the bottom of your screen. Call the conference line. Dial area code 831-582-6500. Once you've entered the system, dial *5 to raise your hand, and you will be added to the queue to speak. Callers will automatically be unmuted until it is their turn to speak. We ask that callers please turn off television or computer speakers or go to another room while connected by phone, as any background noises will cause interference with the broadcast. I will call on each caller in the order of their hands raised and call out the last 4 digits of each caller's phone number before I unmute them. And we're ready to go.
So shall we wait for a minute to see if there is any public comment, or shall we move? I think City Council is waiting like for a minute. If anybody comes in.
Sure. I don't have any comments yet.
Okay. All right. Shall we begin? We need to review the unaudited expenditures from July 1, 2019 through July 30, 2020, conformance to Measure P and Measure S language.
Excuse me, Carol. Nick, I think you've got some background noise. Maybe mute.
I don't have any, but I mean, I have nothing, but.
Oh, no, I was mentioning to Nick. He's good. It was Nick.
Oh.
Excuse me, Carol, did we approve the minutes? There's draft minutes on the agenda.
Of course. Sorry.
No problem.
At the top. May we have, we'd like to approve the minutes of the August 10th, 2020 meeting. Do I hear a motion for approval?
I move for approval.
Is there a second?
Rick Aldinger, second.
Thank you, Rick. Do we have any discussion? Barring discussion, should we want a roll call, or we just all in favor? Should we have a roll call vote, Lisa, or shall we just say all of us approve or not disapprove?
We'll do a roll call. Let's see. I have Rick Hoyer.
Aye.
I have Carol Travagian.
Aye.
I have Nick Spina.
Aye.
I have Rick Aldinger.
Aye.
And Judy Sanderlin is not present.
Okay. Matt, motion passes unanimously with the members that are present. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, now review. And Mr. Hoyer, did you have something? Yes.
Yeah, on the first page, well, actually, the first page of the detail, which is sidewalks.
Yes.
We're buying Mexican beach pedals.
I said the same thing. I know it wasn't in my neighborhood. I'm like, I want to know who's getting the Mexican beach. I saw the same thing. Steve, who's getting Mexican beach pebbles? Or is that Alvarado Street?
So yeah, we try to do is make sure we're keeping our international trade borders open as much as possible.
Yeah, but is it from a sister city at least?
Give me the page again, please, if you could. That'd be great.
It's the first page of the detail. There's sidewalks.
Uh-huh.
I'll make some beach
7-1. Yeah. sixth item from the bottom.
Yeah, I
of
see
the
that.
second
I'm tracking now. Yeah, let me get back into that one and see what that is. I know that we actually had to put some landscaping rocks down adjacent to the conference center when we did that sidewalk there going up Del Monte Street. I think that's where they came to, but I'm not sure. I need to check that.
I know for sure it was not in my neighborhood.
Yeah,
I know for
think
sure
that's-
it's not in my neighborhood also. We don't have sidewalks.
Yeah. I think it's the rounded stones that are in the planter boxes adjacent to the conference center going up Del Monte Street from that sidewalk.
Okay. Okay. All right. And there was another one in there. Hang on a second. That oh no, I guess it'll be the next, and when we come to the 1 month, the 2 months from July and August. Okay. Anything else? Rick, Nick? I saw
No.
there were a couple of, and I guess, do you have some of the engineers that are engineering technicians that are more dedicated? I think it was Antonio Sanchez that was more dedicated to these projects, because it looks like there's a couple of these people that are spending about 25% of their time doing Measure P and Measure S.
So yeah, we do have a team that's kind of working focused on Measure T and Measure S. Sanchez, as you mentioned, is an inspector, and that's so if he's looking at a Measure P or S project, that's where he's billing his time. So yeah, with the construction that goes on, that's what happens. But yeah, so under senior engineer Thomas Corman, that's where a lot of the work resides, and then he assigns staff members, and most of the engineers that are on this, Antonio Hernandez, well, not Hernandez, but Rizzo and Francisco both work for directly for Thomas.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because it was like, there's a lot of hours that for a couple of them that were going about 25% of their time, it looked like, for the year that went into Measure P and Measure S. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Hi, this is Rick Aldinger, Carol. And forgive me, we've probably talked about this before, but I just need to be refreshed. I'm just looking at all of the on-call expenditures, and I'm just wondering, this is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Is this what am I trying to say? Is that exclusively on call, or is that a combination of on call and actually they got called? What's are these a lot of money we're paying out for someone to be near a phone?
So the terminology for that is a little confusing. That's basically on call is old terminology that we have for our job order contracts. So we have a job order contract, we have an item of work, and it's phrased an on-call on this reporting. They're not waiting by a phone and responding in a moment's notice. That's not what these on-calls do. They're not like a plumber. So they're not waiting for the call and we get them out there. When we have Chapin, like you see on the first page there, what we've done is if there's an area of concrete that we have from Uplift or whatever it is, we can get that scheduled and they can do that under that on-call contract that we have with them. So the city has, with Chapin and with a couple of other contractors, an annual contract of about $1 million not to exceed, and individual job orders are written against that on-call contract, and that's why they're coded this way. We're going through a terminology change, and we're changing from on-call to job order, just because of that. It sounds better, job order, as opposed to on-call, because it gives that connotation of on-call that they're waiting by the phone for us to have them go.
Right. So are those 100% converted to actual work, or is it some less than 100%?
So basically, I'm not quite following that, because basically what we would do is we had for a sidebar, for example, that we had a quote for them to go and they go ahead and 100% of that cost for that job order goes against the contract for that. So I'm not sure if that's your question though.
I think so. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. And so Steve, that would be basically on call. Then you have under a certain amount of money where then you wouldn't be, we need this done, and it isn't necessarily then being put out to bid.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
It may not make sense. We may not have you'll see, like, I'm looking at the first sheet that we had here before, There's a couple down about half an hour. McKim Corporation, they had won a contract with us for something else. If they're in town, we have something that pops up near them. What we actually may do is do a change order to the McKim contract because they're local, they can get it and fix it right away with the process. If no one's around, we don't have a contract that's alive right now, then we'll go to the on-call Chapin and we'll have them take care of those issues.
Okay. Again, as long, if and only if it's under a certain amount of money.
Yeah. So basically, the on-call, the way it is, it's the individual job order contracts can be fairly large, but the overall annual maximum for an on-call is determined by council. And for the Chapin contract, for example, it's approved at $1 million a year, because we may use them for something that actually is an emergency. If we had, a storm drain line that collapsed ahead of a storm, we would get them out there and have them do some heavy work. If we had a sanitary sewer line, they would be out there taking care of that if there was an issue. But that contract is alive for labor force, so we can come in. And typically, when we do a contract under an on-call, it's a little bit less engineering that has to go forward with it, because we just have to make sure that the scope is done correctly and we're getting a correct price, or a fair price for that work. We have had a situation where we get a call from an on-call for a sidewalk or something like that, when it was just a little bit too expensive, and then we added it to a different contract. So we're always looking at what's the best bang for the buck to make it go forward.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Could I get some clarification on page 2 and just what it is that these numbers are mean? So with the sales and use tax, I see the adjusted estimate. I see the revenue, year-to-date revenue. I understand, I see the numbers, I see the math, but if you could just walk me through adjusted estimate and revenues, why revenues would be lower, just where we're at, why they are what they are.
So these are Eden reports. They come from the financial system that was installed like in the 1990s. And so some of the terminologies are not what we understand them to be when we read them. Adjusted estimate basically is the budget. Does that make sense, Nick? And then the revenues is the revenue number for year to date, and then it just kind of repeats itself. So the report has very limited utility, but for the purpose of transparency, we wanted to print out what comes from the financial system. So this is basically a budget to actual report.
So the adjusted estimate, that's what you were anticipating?
Right, and because of COVID-19, you could see the revenue shortfall already impacting Measure P and S revenues, like it hit the general fund pretty devastatingly as well.
So we can assume approximately, a large portion of the 1.2 million short is due to COVID. Why would the interest be so much higher? Interest
is a moving number, partly because of accounting rules for us to book certain market values of what we hold. Our interest has improved over time. Unfortunately, COVID set that back as well. So we actually showed some improving interest. We have our money secured in our state investment portfolio mostly. That improved in the first part of the year, reaching like 2.5%, which was good. But then COVID set that back. Then also for accounting reasons, we have to book the market value of our holdings as well. So on the budget side, we try to run a little bit conservative on the interest number. But I wouldn't say, for those that are watching that might be concerned, we didn't change our investment strategy. We didn't put any of this money into any risky portfolios. That's not what we've done. We've kept the money in mostly the state pool and some longer term secured holdings.
Okay. Now, as for the actual revenues received, the 8.9 million, is that complete now? I mean, we're through June 30th, so that is the final number, or is that, there's some delay in the process and it might get closer to the estimated 10?
No, It's final. I always qualify by saying that the audit is still underway. The audit won't be complete until December this year because of COVID setting the schedule back. And so unless there's some sort of fine tuning, this is the number. What you see there is really the impact of COVID. Later on the agenda, we'll also talk about the COVID impact in fiscal 21 as well, and what Public Works is doing in terms of project design and bid. So what you see before you is really more or less what we're closing the year out for fiscal 20 for Measure P.
Because you're
Thank
now,
you.
we're into the second quarter of the fiscal, and usually by the end of the first quarter, everything should be closed. If anything is delayed, normally it wouldn't be any more than a quarter behind in collection, would it?
For sales tax, it usually trails a whole quarter because of the way state allocates it. So at this junction, the number you see in the report is pretty firm. We'd be very surprised if there was an audit finding that would tweak this number materially. So the number in this report is fairly reliable.
No, looking at page 1 with the expenses, those are significantly higher this year.
Mhm.
Was that anticipated? I mean, are these on target with what we were expecting? I know they've been increasing, for the most part was that the plan, or was there some change as to why they're spending more now?
Steve can speak to that. It has to do with project planning because, with CIP, it's not a linear expenditure. It has to do with project planning. So maybe Steve, you can comment on that.
Yeah, Nick, that was part of the plan, actually, as we went through the process and the aspect to finish the job. When we looked through the process of going P to S and trying to be, I don't want to say, with P, we had a list of streets we were trying to go to be, careful, but we had told the voters. When we got the finish the job coordinate, we actually kind of just did more by neighborhoods and areas as opposed to kind of skipping around a little bit. So yeah, there was an increase in size of the paving projects that we saw going forward, and actually we're closing up some fairly large projects.
Did you see because it seemed that, not that any of us were out a lot in the March, April, May, but it seemed like it was a good time and there was work getting done when there weren't a lot of people around. It was a convenient time when you weren't pissing people off as much with traffic.
It was a great time to do that. That's where we did a lot of the work on Alvarado and Cali P. We did a lot of work next to the transit center at that point in time because we could get in there pretty quickly and get some of that work done very quickly. So yeah, we took advantage of less traffic.
So that, I think, helped. I mean, not that it wasn't already scheduled, but I think
yeah, it was a happy coincidence.
Yeah.
It was a happy coincidence.
Yeah. No, it was good because then I saw that stuff going on. I'm like, oh, goody. People won't be as angry. They'll be, oh, look, I'm back out again, and look, oh, the streets are fixed. Oh. Yeah. Thank you. Good. Anything else, Nick? Rick?
Nothing.
Okay. Do we need then to?
I'll move that we find the expenditures to be consistent with the requirements of Measure P and S.
A second? I'll second that. Do we have any discussion? Any further discussion? No? Then could we get a roll call, please, Lisa?
Okay, I have Rick Hoyer,
Aye.
Carol Trebajian,
Aye.
Nick Sina,
Aye.
Rick Aldinger,
Aye.
and Judy Sanderlin's not present.
Thank you. We have a unanimous vote of all those present. Thank you. We move on then to the unaudited periodic report for a period of July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2020. Has everyone had a chance to look at that? And do we have any comments? Lauren, anything you'd like to provide to us?
So Rick Aldinger, on page 2 of that packet, that section of the packet, on the percentage of change I just want to confirm that this, some of those large numbers that we're seeing, plus or minus, are just shifts in the focus of the money being spent during a particular time period. It switched from slurry coats to paving to sidewalks to storm drains, and so that's kind of what we're seeing with a 1,500% increase in expenditures, for example, on sidewalks and so forth.
Yes, yes. As we're going year over areas, we did a lot more sidewalk work that was done this period than last.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
It didn't seem, I don't know, in just not glancing, but in looking it over, it seemed that the ADA was not as much as bad, not bad, as much as it hadn't been. Does that means that you're not doing it, the sidewalk work isn't done enough to require ADA upgrades?
It's a fluctuation, actually. It really depends on where we're doing the pavement work. Usually the pavement triggers the ADA, with the exceptions of the signalized intersections. But the pavement really triggers the ADA and what level we're doing with that aspect of it. So, like I say, it fluctuates with the different projects. As we have a project we awarded the other day, a fairly good one for Mar Vista and Ports of Ramona and so forth. That one has a lot of ADA components with that one. It's just the nature of the street and where it's at. Not so much on Mar Vista, but sure a lot of ADA with the Ramona side of that project.
Okay. Any other?
So I don't have any more questions. If no one else does, I'm ready to make a motion.
Thank you.
But not hearing anything, I'll go ahead and move that we approve the unaudited periodic report from July 1st, 19 through June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Any discussion? Further discussion? No. We get a roll call vote, please, Lisa. Thank you.
Yes, I have Rick Ware,
Aye.
Carol Trebajian,
Aye.
Nick Sina,
Aye.
Rick Aldinger.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously with those present. Now we need to review the unaudited expenditures from July 1, 2020 through August 31, 2020 for conformance. And there was one, I have a question. There was, is it Sanchez? There's one of them. It looks like he spent 2 months doing nothing but measure P, measure S. He said 500 hours in 2 months.
Yeah, and I could, and as I mentioned, Sanchez is an inspector, and he was a lot of the inspection for the work that was going on while we're doing the COVID process. A lot of that aspect was down there, and a lot of his time was spent down there, virtually the vast majority of it, if not all of it.
So that was the majority of it. Then it was this is in the new fiscal year then, right? When he was doing the inspection of the work.
Yeah, and a lot, just so you have the breakdown of Sanchez is one of the guys that does a lot of our sidewalk street work. He's unfortunately he's moved on from us with the city. He just actually took another job with another firm. So, but that's just life as we go in the city. But he was our prime guy for doing a lot of the street work and sidewalks.
Okay, all right. Thank you. No, I'm sorry. It was not Sanchez. It was Francisco.
Yeah, Francisco. Now Francisco Sabgia. His last name was. I have difficulty with last name because you're well, Carol. Basically, he's a technician, and what he is he's a hardcore drafter. Is what he really does. He's basically taken the input from Thomas and a little bit from Max, and then he basically, as opposed to those guys spending their time doing the hardcore drafting, they give their feedback to Francisco, and Francisco puts the drawings forward.
Okay, yeah, because I'm sorry, he's the one that it looks like he spent 2 months doing nothing but this.
It's very likely, and I don't know if you recall when we went through this process of looking at the numbers in previous cycles, we see a fairly large number from some of our consultants, some consultants are fading out from like M&S for that aspect of it. They would do that drafting for us because it was convenient to get them going. We pulled them off, have Francisco in. Now we were able to bring him on board as a hire and bring that internally to get the cost down a little bit. So yeah, Francisco, hardcore drafter is what he does.
Okay, thank you. So, Rick, Nick, any comments?
How does a situation occur where we would have a negative tax revenue?
I was gonna ask the same thing.
Okay, let's see, what page are you referring to, Nick? This was a big packet.
Page 1, just our tax revenue for this year. I understand it's just a couple of months and the money hasn't come in, but it's minus $34.
I didn't even notice that myself. There must have been some sort of adjustment on the books. We haven't received anything yet, so I'll take a look at that, Nick.
Actually, it's improved. It was $1,000 negative last year.
I'll look into that, but I have a feeling it was some sort of a book entry.
And yet we still, okay, so we have the 10,000. Yeah, is it then, because we're looking at 2 months of the new fiscal year, then the possibility that it hasn't been collected yet, or hasn't been
Yeah.
you haven't received it yet?
Yeah, so let me just explain a little bit, because this is the first, I wouldn't say it's the first time, but we don't look at the revenues report on the front end of the fiscal year as often. In July and August, those cash receipts go back to the prior year because they have to be accrued back, because with sales tax is 1 quarter in arrear. So technically July, August receipts gets pushed into the prior year that we just closed. That was item 2 and 3 on our agenda. So September cash flow for sales tax to the city is really the first month that we would actually post revenue into Measure P&S for the subsequent fiscal year. So that's why I think this $33 is probably some sort of an accounting adjustment or something. So typically it would be 0 right now. So I'll look into that for us.
Okay, and I have a question. You're looking at, when I'm looking at the report, amend resolutions. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. Never mind. Sorry. We'll get to that. Sorry. Any other questions? Guys? No? Yes?
No,
Then may we entertain a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Lisa?
Okay, Rick Hoyer,
Aye.
Rick Aldinger,
Aye.
Nick Sina,
Aye.
Carol Trebajian,
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously of those present. So next we have unaudited periodic report for the period of July 1, 2020 through August 31, 2020. Any comments, questions? Aside from the minus $34?
I haven't.
I'll move we accept the report.
I'll second that. We have any further discussion? Lisa, can we have a roll call, please?
okay, Carol Trebajian,
Aye.
Nick Sina,
Aye.
Rick Hoyer,
Aye.
Rick Aldinger,
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously of those present. Thank you. Okay. fiscal year 21, Measure P and Measure S COVID budget impacts.
You skipped item 6.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry. I'm a left-handed language major, sorry. Draft council agenda report for annual report.
So I'll speak to this. Each year, the committee submits to the council its reporting and also confirmation that based on your review, the expenditures are compliant with the tax regs that the voters approve. So we just want to ask for your permission as to how you want to move forward with that. Typically, it's been the report, which is agendized today, item 2, 3, and 4. If that's your wish, then Steve and I will be happy to put that together. And then Carol, you let us know when you want us to bring that to council.
Okay. Yes. Did everybody took a look at it? It's what we have been doing. So I don't know that we have Rick, Nick, we don't have any need to make any changes, do we?
So
I don't
Rick
think so.
Aldinger, so it's my understanding the report doesn't exist yet. Is that correct, or we're just discussing staff putting that together for our approval? Is that right?
Typically how it works is a staff report is just a boilerplate memo that says attached is the report from the committee. The report would in essence be the items 2 and 3 on this agenda. And we would give usually the committee, it's been in the past, Carol, some time with the council to kind of just confirm what we've done during the year and that we're formally submitting this report for council receipt. So Steve and I just put kind of like a cover letter or cover staff report that attaches item 2 and 3 on this agenda and formally submit it to council.
Great, thank you. And yeah, and that's fine with me. That's how we've been doing it. That seems to be working, and so I'm happy to continue.
And then we can just figure out how long do we think that'll take, and when would we like to. Then I think we did it before the end of the year last year for council, which is best case scenario probably, right?
Yeah, wasn't it in November that we did?
Yeah.
So Steve, I'm thinking the November 3rd meeting is only an afternoon meeting. Typically that's been our tradition when it falls on election day. So possibly the November 17th meeting or the first meeting in December. So I just offer those dates, especially because if we want any committee members present.
Happily or sadly, most of us aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
I was asked in the middle of this if somebody, are you going to go to New York to visit your family? I'm like, would you go to New York to visit anyone? I'm like, they're like, oh, no, never mind. So I think for any of those, the 17th or would be fine, or the first meeting in December would be fine. Just see what is best, maybe see what's coming up with council. I mean, it's quick with them, but I also don't want, if they've got a packed meeting, we don't need to get pushed in the middle of that with them.
Right. Steve, also because a lot of the questions that may come up technically would need to be punted to you. Do you have a preference, just so the committee knows what date we might lean into going forward with? Are you preferring November 17th or December 1?
I think either would be fine. If we do have election results, typically they see people on December 1st. It might be a little bit awkward if we have new people coming in to have that pomp and circumstance and then going on to this other report. It might be a simpler meeting to do it on the November meeting, but I could go either way with that process. And I think I was talking to Hans on Friday. We really haven't done a recent meeting to council to talk about our progress overall. So, we can fold into a little bit more slides and show of what we've done as opposed to just the standard one this time. So I put that on Hans's ear on Friday. He hasn't gotten back to me with the date either. So what I'm asking from Hans is about 15-20 minutes for the dog and pony show, if you will, and then we can certainly roll that. It makes a nice connection with this report as well. So we'll leave it up to Hans where he wants to go. I'm fine either the second meeting in November or 1st of December.
Maybe, as you said, though, if we, I mean, it might be, with the city council. Well, then if, at that point, then if the first is gonna make a change, then if either A, the 17th of November, or B, the meeting after the first in
Right.
December, so. If we can do the 17th, maybe ask Hans, if we can do the 17th of December, I think it would be,
I think it's nice that there and it fits, and we don't have to worry about the pomp and circumstance with changing seats. Perhaps if that happens, we don't. It just, we can ignore that drama, if you will.
yeah, yes.
So let me paraphrase what I heard, which is our committee preference is November 17th. The second preference then would be the December 15th meeting, because then we're basically doing some education outreach, knowledge sharing with possibly the new council or the council going forward.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, good, great. I'll be on the lead to prepare that report, and then Steve, maybe if you could help pinpoint the date with Hans.
Yep.
Thank you. Believe Carol, and that's the item 6.
Okay, perfect. Now, number 7. Fiscal year 21 P&S COVID budget impacts. Oh boy.
Right. So let me pull that item up here. So in essence, we thought maybe instead of writing a separate staff report for the committee, since the content doesn't change, we wanted to submit to this committee what we submitted to the council. By way of background, we have a company called HDL that provides sales tax reporting to us and also sales tax audit. So they do the compliance component, and they also help us understand what's happening locally with our revenue. They have basically 95% of the sales tax data from the state for the state of California. What they've shown us here in the staff report, as you can see to council, is that for fiscal 21, the year that we began on July 1, they're estimating that our measure P&S revenue will actually drop by $2 million. So if you look at item 7, page 3, there's a table which has $7.4 million of loss. There's a fund that's called fund number 252. The legal name for Measure S per the ballot is actually Streets Infrastructure Rehab Fund, and in parentheses, it's P&S. So in paren there, the negative number that we're estimating to lose is $2,027,000. That's a big setback. It's a big setback when we've been trending about 10 million, a bit stronger than 10 million as well. And so I wanted to put that out there. Steve and I have been talking about that, and maybe Steve, you can comment on what we're doing, because Councilmember Dan Albert had a really good question during the council meeting. It might be good to share that with this group, and then also share with this group kind of how this might affect our design and bid process going forward.
Yeah, I forgot his question.
The question was whether or not this new information affects the bids we've already accepted and the projects underway.
So the projects underway, that doesn't impact those at all. So the one, like I said, we just awarded one the other night for 1.2 million for a paving project. Those are not impacted at all. What it does impact a little bit is how we are putting projects forward in terms of focused areas, or how to work into smaller packages, so that we can be a little more nimble with it. We, like I mentioned earlier, we had a $7 million paving contract that we just did with Tykert. A lot of good work that was done there. But right now it doesn't make sense for us to put a project that large out there with the fluid numbers. So we're packaging a little smaller right now. Right now, we're going to focus back towards some ADA work, sidewalk and ADA stuff. So those numbers and percentages are going to be going up a little bit. Those projects typically also have a little more a draw on drafting in terms of the design to get the ADA aspects right. It's a little easier to do a slurry package plans and spec than it is the ADA component. So basically, we're focusing on those projects that still need to get done, are still part of the process, but we're just a little bit smaller bites as opposed to the $7 million number. So we're closer to the a $500,000-ish for sidewalks, and the paving will be about the 1 to 1.5 million, which is still good enough to get economies of scale, but still it's a little more maneuverable with the numbers coming forward.
Well, and it's interesting though, that 2 million, so here it's 8.6, and we had 8.9, which again, I guess is a loss in the end in the March through June this year, and then the beginning of the year. But it's one of my new favorite terms. It's less worse than I thought it would be.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things, I mean, as Lauren points out, it is a loss that we're not seeing the revenue that's there, but reality is it's still a gain because we're still, if you remember back early to some of the projections we were hoping to get from the Measure B, Measure S revenue, we're still doing fairly well with those numbers. That 8 to 7 to 9 million is what we were kind of hoping for back in the day. And now we're disappointed because we're not getting 10, which don't get me wrong, I'd love to get 10, but I mean, it's not like the dam has burst and we're struggling. It's just a matter of making sure that we're, because as we went forward and we had those numbers, we ramped those projects that way, and now we just got to, like I say, do a break check, if you will, make sure we're doing what we want to do and package appropriately with the revenue coming forward.
Are you expecting the expenses to lower? And I don't mean by cutting, but I mean by, businesses lowering their bid prices as competition is down, as things go down. Are you anticipating that?
We have a very favorable bid environment right now. We have seen a lot of competition for our bids, which is it's a double-edged sword, because we would love to put a lot of projects forward, but can we afford them? So we want to put ourselves in a spot. For example, the various trades, we have a building that's happening on the Waterford parking lot where we got 9 bidders for it, and we came in $100,000 on $1 million project lower than our estimate. It's great. Pavement right now, the price of oil is great prices for that. We have a lot of competition. So we're seeing a favorable bid environment right now. And there's a lot of folks that are hungry to work, and the people who are doing the work typically are pretty high quality. So we're pretty sad. We're pretty, like I said, I wish I could bid a whole lot more right now, but it's just a matter of making sure that we're not overstepping.
Well, see,
is that changing budgeted expenses though, or is that reflected on the printout for budgeted expenses, or are you maintaining the same what we had for our budget? I'm trying to figure, is the situation going to be even better, or is it going to be kind of accurate as to what you got?
So I think what we're doing is it's going to be accurate to what we got, I think, because as we're going forward this process, like I say, we're kind of maneuvering our projects to make sure that we're taking advantage of what we can.
Well, and we had the situation before where when we had all that money and people were busy, we weren't getting a lot of bids, were we? I mean, it was like when you would normally get, say, 5 or 6, you were getting maybe 2.
Yeah, we had a period we were only getting like 2 or 3 for a couple of paving projects, and now it's pretty consistent. We're getting 7, 8 for pretty much everything we're bidding right now. Is that right, Sarah? Yeah, about 7 or 8.
Oh, that's good. Well, and is there any place, I know since city has all this property that they own, is there any place we can store asphalt so that we can have it for later?
Well, that's the thing. Once it's hot and you put it in a spot, it really doesn't do well for us to let it sit there.
I'm kidding.
I know.
There's a friend of mine one day, she said, "I'm being fictitious." And I said, "Do you possibly mean facetious?" So now I say, I'm being fictitious.
But like I say, just so you have a sense, within all of our bids, this doesn't relate to Measure P or S, but we have a very large project where we're under construction on the Presidio with pre-MSA financing. That's a huge paving project up there. We got several bidders for that, and it's the time to pave if we can. So, we're seeing good numbers for all of our projects, not just P projects, but for PMSA projects. There's a lot of people are hungry.
So I just echo what Steve is saying in that while the environment's good from a pricing perspective, we're continuing to tread conservatively. And one thing we're increasing our effort on is the ability to monitor and track what's happening. So staff is developing internal reporting tools to fine tune this better, because right now with COVID, that's going to be one of our key factors for success is how do we do our monitoring and tracking even better than we did in the past? And then bringing that information forward to decision bodies. So in December, we're going to bring another financial update report to council. The reason why we timed it for December is that HDL will be able to give us another quarterly update because, you know, sales tax is really based on quarters. By December, we will have new information based on estimates of how fiscal 21 is performing. That will certainly affect the general fund since sales tax is one of our top 3 revenue generators. And then that will also trickle over to this committee as well, since measure P&S is a sales tax measure. So be on the lookout for that. And certainly we'll continue to be transparent and diligent.
Your microphone, Carol.
Sorry, anything else? Anyone, any other questions?
Nothing for me.
So do we need a, we want to approve the receipt of this, or what do we need to do with this? Or this is informational?
It's probably just informational since it's really just receiving a report that the council previously received. And I think importantly is that we've had the discussion, so this committee is very aware of what's happening.
Okay, good, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, then how about we discuss the 2021 meeting calendar?
Hey, Carol, I'm sorry, folks, Rick Haldinger, I'm going to need to duck out here. And so I trust everybody to come up with a good schedule for 2021.
I have 4 dates already to recommend. So if that's okay, 1/11, 4/12, 7/12, and 10/11.
Sounds good to me.
Yep, that works for me.
See, wonderful. Then if we can get staff, then we'll get that on the calendar. We'll calendarize that. And then I guess, do we have anything else? We have, is there any public comment we have any public comment? If not, may we have a motion to adjourn?
No public comment.
Rick Haldinger, move to adjourn.
Thank you. Second. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. See you soon.